As a financial advisor, probably one of the biggest misconceptions that I battle is that people imagine that all day long I'm just staring at this collection of screens and there's just stock ticker symbols flying through and I'm on the phone constantly, buy, sell, hold, jumping in, jumping out, and I can't think of a bigger waste of time or an easier way to get an ulcer than to approach business in that fashion. I don't want the stress, you don't want the stress, and quite frankly, there's a better way to operate. And so I want to talk to you today about market timing and how we navigate through a downturn in the stock market. The first thing I want to set straight is that there's absolutely no such thing as the market. It is not this one monolithic beast. There are, in fact, a lot of different markets. You've got, certainly in the realm of the stock market, you've got the small cap market, the mid cap market, the large cap market, there's the international market. Then you've got the bond market. You've got the commodities market. You've got other markets as well, like the real estate market, the market that your business may be a part of. There's a slew of different markets, and they all operate at a different cadence. There's all kinds of factors to consider. You may have one particular stimulus that occurs in a world event that impacts the small cap market differently than it affects emerging markets. Emerging markets operate differently than developed markets, and both of those are in the category of international. So there isn't one uniform market. Now there are indexes that people have a tendency to pay closer attention to, but the Dow is made up of just 30 companies. One change on any of those 30 can have a significant impact on how that index behaves in a given day. The S&P 500 is 500 companies. The NASDAQ is primarily technology companies, as well as some high growth names in healthcare and biotech. So there's so many different aspects that you can't just talk about the market as though it's one universal entity, because it's a lot of different things. With a little bit of an understanding about the various markets that are in play, now we've got to ask ourselves, okay, but when there is a downturn, and that downturn occurs in one market, or it occurs in multiple markets, well, now what do I do? The first thing you've got to realize about it is that downturns are normal. Upturns follow downturns, and historically speaking, the upturns last a heck of a lot longer than the downturns do. The difference, of course, is how it affects us emotionally. We remember the fear, uncertainty, and doubt associated with the downturn far more than we remember the euphoria or the excitement of the upturn. Downturns are normal. Upturns follow downturns. Upturns last a lot longer, but we're emotionally tied back to the downturn and the pain and the fear associated with it. Additionally, you should expect a downturn in the neighborhood of 5% in any given market multiple times throughout the year. 10% in a given year is pretty typical. And on average, once out of every 4 years, you're likely to encounter a 20% correction. And really, in terms of terminology, correction technically means 10%. 20% actually refers to a bear market, but all of it is a correction or a return to mean in the overall balance of that particular marketplace. So, we know there's different kinds of markets, not just one. We know that we should expect downturns to be a normal part of how we operate, even if emotionally we get attached to them a little bit more. But the third thing is, how do we navigate it? What do we do with it? So the problem is analysis paralysis sets in. We get frozen because it's already declined 5%, 10%, 15%, whatever the figure is. What if it goes more? And so out of fear, we stop and do nothing. But then even if we see things start to return to some notion of normal, if they seem to be getting better, then we fear, well, but what if I do decide to invest and it was the wrong time to? What if it still goes down further? And so we get stuck. We get trapped until we just opt to do nothing. I'd just rather do nothing than make the wrong decision. And so I've got a few pieces of guidance around that. For starters, if your time frame is sufficiently long, if you don't need this money for 10 years or for 20 years, don't sweat it, just invest, you'll be fine. Even if you chose the wrong time to invest, and you probably will choose the wrong time, in a decade, you'll be thrilled that you bought in at the time you did. Secondly, let's say that you've got a shorter time frame that you're interested in, and you're now concerned about how to do it. What you need is to remove the emotion, remove the timing, and instead embrace a systematic approach. Now, that systematic approach could look like dollar cost averaging, which is where you invest the same amount of money on a predictable schedule every week, every 2 weeks, every month, and you just put it in rain or shine without worrying about what's going on in one or more markets at the time. Or if you're looking at a defined period of time, looking to put that chunk of money in and just stressing over the right timing on it, another strategy you can use is to let that percentage decline drive the decision making. So if you see a given market is down 5%, take 5% of your reserves and put that in. If you see a given index then drops to 10%, take another 10% and put that in. And so you can systematically know that you're picking up those investments at increasingly lower prices. And it gives you a way of approaching this in a strategic fashion that isn't tied to things you see on the news or the way you happen to be feeling at the time. There's so much fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or what I call FUD, that the media puts out there about investing, about the market, and it causes us to get paralyzed. To deal with that, we need to first recognize there isn't any such thing as a market. Secondly, we've got to embrace the reality that downturns are normal and that we have to come to appreciate them and deal with them as being normal if we're going to be successful as long-term serious investors. And thirdly, you've got to introduce a disciplined strategic approach to investing, either systematically investing over time or actually using the downturns directly to your advantage to put portions of your available cash in as prices continue to drop. If you want to kick around some ideas or explore how this directly impacts you and your family, give us a holler. We're happy to serve as a sounding board, a second opinion, or a voice of reason in the midst of market mayhem.